Hello, everybody. This is Tim Long, one half of Horror Movie Yearbook, here with your horror hotline for July 26, 2018. It is Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody. We are going to jump into our Castle Rock review here in a minute. Just wanted to let everybody know, once again, check out our other shows. We've got our Horror Movie Yearbook, the main show. Our Fear episode will be dropping tomorrow morning, so gonna get that edited and up. We've got the Game Nerds. Game Nerds, I believe, are going to be covering the game. It gets called No Man's Sky. I believe I think it might be an expansion pack that's out. I don't know. They're gonna be talking about it. So check out the Midwest Game Nerds. Hop on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. You can donate to the podcast network for as little as $1 a month. That's all the plugs I got for this morning. I just wanted to get in the groove of things here real quick, because we're going to be talking about Castle Rock. I watched the first episode last night. I have not moved on from that. Just a heads up on my TV viewing habits. I am not good with this entire binge model. I am terrible at it. I will forget that I'm watching a show like halfway through it, even if I like it. I am going to try to keep up with this one. I'll get in a little bit of my reviews. There's some stuff I really liked. There's some stuff I did not like as much. But here's my promise to you. If I end up like not liking it, I won't continue to talk about it, because nobody wants to listen to a guy talk about a show that he doesn't like. It's awful. But luckily I did like the first episode. There were just a few kind of like nagging problems I had throughout. And it's also really hard these days. This is where I get on my soapbox. This is like old man yelling at cloud here. This is where I get on my soapbox and say, like, it's hard with me for television these days, because especially episode by episode recaps and reviews are tough for me, because so many TV shows, and Castle Rock seems like one of them, so many TV shows aren't meant to be judged until they are done with a whole season. But I want to do some recaps for it. The first episode does stand alone, but it's leading into things, and it's bringing up questions that are going to be answered throughout the season. So it's tough to get a full handle on the show, I think, until that first story is told. So we just got a part of the story in the first episode. Castle Rock, of course, is a part of Stephen King's kind of fictional Maine, along with towns like Derry, Jerusalem's Lot. It's a central setting in novels like The Dead Zone, Cujo. It shows up again in Revival. All sorts. Castle Rock is in all sorts of King works. This is the first episode of the show. It's on Hulu. If you don't subscribe to Hulu, you're not going to get it. There might be ways to get it, but I will not encourage you to do that. This is directed by, first episode called Severance. It's directed by Michael Uppendahl. He is known for his work on shows like Mad Men. He's done some American Horror Story work. He's worked on Legion, Glee, a lot of television. This is written by the showrunners, Sam Shaw and Dustin Thomason. So I'm going to try to give a quick plot outline. I'm really bad at this, so I'm just going to kind of skirt through it. But I suck at like plot recaps. It's not that I don't pay attention. I pay attention. I'm just really bad at just recapping stuff. I can't like recap stuff like I just watched. Obviously, because I just watched this. We open in 1991. We are in the snowy woods. We're with Alan Pangborn, the sheriff. You might recognize that name from books like Needful Things and The Dark Half. We just talked about Needful Things on the podcast. He's played by Ed Harris in that. But he's searching for something. It turns out he's searching for a young boy named Henry. Henry, I believe, is a 10 or 11-year-old boy at the time. And when he finds Henry, he finds him across like an icy clearing. We jump back to the present from there. Shawshank, we get to see Shawshank prison in this. The warden, Dale Lacey, we meet him and his wife at first. It's a very sweet scene. It's a very quick scene, but immediately we go from that scene into him killing himself in his car. He hangs himself by snapping his neck. Hard to explain. You'll have to watch to see it, but essentially he kills himself in in his car by tying the noose around his neck and driving forward with it. We then jump from there. We jump back to Shawshank Prison, or for the first time, I think we enter Shawshank Prison, where he's the warden, the new warden in it, and she's getting ready to clean house. And that's where she sends the guards to check on. There's an abandoned area in Shawshank Prison, and that's where they stumble upon the kid. Now, the kid, I don't know if it's a reference to The Stand. We don't really get to know much about him. This is the character played by Bill Skarsgård. We don't get to know a lot about him, at least in the first episode that I saw. But we do find him. He is underneath Shawshank Prison. The guards find him. He seems to have been kept there by the warden, played by Terry O'Quinn. We don't really get a handle on why. We just know that when he's found, he says the name of Henry, the young boy that we meet, who is now a lawyer. Because now Henry Deaver is an attorney for death row inmates. We meet him in Texas. He's in Houston, Texas. He's all grown up now. He's defending the oldest death row inmate. The oldest death row inmate in Texas, I believe, in the nation. We find out that when Henry was found, he was healthy and unharmed. He had been missing for 11 days, and his father went to search for him and actually died in the search. He finds out that the kid says his name, so Henry then returns to Castle Rock, where he finds his mother. He goes back to his mother's house, who's played by Sissy Spacek. She seems to be suffering from dementia. It seems she barely remembers Henry at all. She, in fact, doesn't really remember him at all. And now she's also living with Alan Pangborn, the sheriff who discovered Henry. From there, we go back to we have a scene with Henry visiting Shawshank. There's a scene between he and the new warden where she kind of discourages him from investigating any further. We do also meet Molly Strand, who is played by Melanie Linsky. She's kind of a local there. We meet her. She's buying, I think, drugs in a school parking lot from a teenager. She sees Henry and she kind of shudders, and then we see how the town reacts to Henry as he arrives back in town. They are all very leery of him. One of them even says something kind of sarcastically like, "Hey, killer." The death of his father is seemingly pinned on Henry in this. From there, we get one more flashback, really. That flashback is to the first warden, Terry O'Quinn, kind of telling him, just seeing him down underneath. It's alluded to that he is keeping him there as kind of a prisoner. Don't know what sort of prisoner, but it's just the final scene is of Terry O'Quinn's character telling Skarsgård's character to say the name of Henry Deaver when he is found. So we'll see where it goes from there. I know that's the plot outline. It wasn't pretty, I'm sorry. But that's the plot outline for episode 1. I haven't moved on to episode 2 or 3. They are up on Hulu. They're going to be dishing these out, I believe, every Wednesday or Thursday from here on out. But episodes 2 and 3 are up right now. I'll talk about my thoughts on it. What's most important in a King adaptation, to me, is kind of character and setting. We don't get to meet a lot of characters in this. We do get to meet, in that first episode, we do get to meet Henry Deaver. And I guess this is kind of my issue with some of television nowadays, is we barely meet anybody, and even the stuff of Henry is kind of scant. There's not a lot there. This first half he is an ideal. He does fit the King mold, though. He fits that King lead character mold. He is idealistic. He is an alcoholic. He's struggling to come to grips with certain aspects of his past. He's very much in that King lead. He's kind of reserved. He's very much in that King lead character mode. Sarsgaard's character is also in that mold. He's kind of the mysterious outsider. I don't know if he ties into. There is a character called the Kid in the Stand. Oh boy, there's a plot I'll never recap as the Stand, but we don't. That's another one we don't get to learn a lot about him. We just kind of get glimpses of characters, and they're not real well drawn out yet. But I am interested. It definitely, especially in Henry. I gravitate, and I like the actor that's playing him. He's from Moonlight, and he's quite good in that. This, at least the first half of this, is all about setting. Now, I think they do a good job in here. There might be a little bit too much. It might come off a little bit too much like Derry, but it's understandable. Castle Rock and Derry are kind of two different places. This ties into that King idea of there's always something lurking underneath the surface in his towns. That kind of, I've always associated that more with Derry, but the way they tie it into Castle Rock, it works for me. Castle Rock is an interesting town, and I like the way it presents kind of this everyday salt of the earth American city with something else lurking underneath it. This is the show itself. It's from the two showrunners, but you can tell it's heavily influenced by both Stephen King and also J.J. Abrams. And both of those influences are on display here. For me, though, it's the King stuff that definitely wins out. It's the stuff lurking around the corners that's kind of the King references. And it's not even so much the Easter eggs, it's more of the tone and the way the characters act and the way the setting is and kind of the themes it seems to be ready to play around with. That song we hear in the beginning, the Gene Pitney song, is a total King move. Like so many King works, yeah, there's that darkness, and in this one it seems to be literally coming from underground, but there's that darkness kind of lurking underground and around the corners. King has always written, so many of his works revolve around nostalgia, especially It is the one I come back to when with nostalgia. But he's always kind of had this nostalgia for the 50s, but at the same time kind of critiquing it. The 50s is kind of what people look back on as kind of like that idealistic America, that America we remember as being kind of like perfect when we had the nuclear family and everything was at its best. But nostalgia isn't all it's cracked up to be, and you get that with Henry's character. You get that when he returns back to Castle Rock. This isn't him triumphantly returning to his own town or nostalgically looking back on Castle Rock. It's not a good place for him. It's not a place that he wants to revisit. He's not treated well. I like that it's barely touched upon, but the warden has a line like, "You were a black man, you're a black boy living in a lily white town." There is a racial aspect to it all as well. He has a white mother and a black father. He's really one of the few, he might be the only black character we see in Castle Rock. So it does touch upon that King idea that nostalgia isn't all it's cracked up to be. Of course, yeah, with the 50s, I mean, we had civil rights not being certain civil rights not being allowed, the Cuban Missile Crisis, all sorts of stuff. It's not, like I said, it's not all it's cracked up to be. So I like that it touches on that. There is that culture clash too of Maine versus Texas that kind of it's once again kind of just touched upon, but there is a culture clash at the center. I mean, he's been in Texas, they're in Maine now. That's during the scene too with the warden. My issues with the show so far, and this ties more into the J.J. Abrams influence, I believe. There's that puzzle box mystery in the way the information is doled out in a non-linear way kind of bothers me. And it's weird because it's not as if King hasn't told stories in a non-linear fashion before. He's used flashbacks throughout his books. Once again, it jumps around in time. I guess the difference I think I have with something like It and then something like Castle Rock is so much of It, the flashbacks, and even the first like 3 seasons of Lost I'll throw in here as well on the Abrams side of things. So much of those flashbacks seem character-based. They're all giving us information on the character. I think my issue with this show, and then maybe later seasons of something like Lost, and a lot of J.J. Abrams' work, is so much of those flashbacks and that non-linear storytelling. I don't understand. The flashbacks are from a plot perspective, and that's kind of an annoyance for me. It's not, we don't get flashbacks really character-wise. We're getting plotted information doled out kind of just randomly throughout the episode. It's a type of storytelling. It's probably just a personal thing. I know some people probably gravitate towards it more than me. It irks me though. Because a lot of times I just don't understand. We're getting these flashbacks of things that could have been. It feels like it's extending the plot out, and it's stuff that could have been just probably said in a line of dialogue, honestly. So most of my issues with this so far come from that non-linear puzzle box style, just doling out mysteries as we go along. That kind of bother me. As far as thematically, this first episode is all about memory, it seems, but I don't know how it all ties together yet, and that's kind of, once again, the issue with judging this show on an episode by episode basis, I think. But it revolves a lot around memory and remembering. We are Henry, when he's found, he's kind of a blank slate. He doesn't remember how he got there, how he got back. His mother, when we meet her, where we meet her, she seems to be suffering from dementia. The kid is another one who doesn't remember a lot. When we see him, he's being told by the warden to say Henry's name. There's a scene, this is especially, this idea of memory and playing around with it especially pops up in the scene with the death row inmate, and it's a scene I like a lot. But she asks him what he thinks it's like when you cross over to the other side, and if you just kind of forget the memories that you've made on this side on Earth, before you cross over into the next realm. And he goes, "What are you afraid of that? Is something you're afraid of?" And she goes, "No, I welcome it." So there's even the idea of kind of forgetting your past too, that kind of ties together with his character and her character. But he is forced to confront it when he heads back to Castle Rock. So there you go. That's kind of my review recap of the first episode of Castle Rock. I'm going to try to keep doing these. Where I'm at with it is, I liked the first episode. I do have my issues with it, but it's okay. I have issues with shows. It's fine. You can have issues with things you like, right? I think. I'm probably only gonna watch one episode a day. Honestly, that's the more fun way for me to. And at some point, they're gonna be coming out with them every week. So that's how I enjoy watching shows. It gives me a little bit more time to dissect it as well. So you'll probably see reviews. I might even watch the second episode tonight, talk about it tomorrow. So you'll kind of see reviews pop up as I watch them for Castle Rock. But yeah, I like the show overall. It's the King stuff that's really drawing me in, though, to be honest. And it's the King stuff that's going to keep me hooked. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys, everybody, for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow. But yeah, that's it for your Horror Hotline for Thursday, July 26th, 2018. Thanks, everybody.